I'm using the old-fashioned method of handouts. Because actually it's quite nice sometimes to have a piece of paper, you can scribble on it, you can take it away, it's got my email address and my Twitter accounts and so on. Now, this talk is based on the idea that the issues and techniques that you use in one kind of class can be relevant for other subjects. So I teach in a writing program, and that principle holds true because the presentation you just saw was about teacher training, but it was talking about documentation and narratives. And I'm going to be talking about the strategies that we use in the writing class to deal with emotions. And this is emotions in the felt by the student, emotions felt by ourselves as teachers, and in our case, how the student learns to communicate emotions on the page in his or her writing, because that's our substantive subject, that's our discipline. And in thinking about that, that means that we think about how we juggle the roles of coach and judge, because we're encouraging the students and then we're marking them. And when you're dealing with some subjects, that's not quite such a huge contrast. But with creative writing, it can feel very difficult because the student is writing about things that are very often very close to his or her personal experience, and it's hard for the student to separate the judgment about the work from the judgment about him or herself. It also raises the question, what is it we're doing? Are we providing a safe space for discovery? And there are competing ideas about writing classes as a form of therapy versus writing as a professional activity. And we also have to face the question of how much we reveal about ourselves in the class or with students, in one-to-one or in the class. And especially this comes up where we're using social media, which is more personal and intimate. And in writing classes, we often have the issue of how do we respond to work that seems disturbing in some way, work that's handed in for assessment, where there's something about what they've written that is difficult or disturbing. We've had pornography, we've had very personal raw matters that indicate breakdowns, that sort of thing. And finally, about the ethics. We have ethics committees with rules about research when we're researching about other people, when we're interviewing other people, working on other people. But do we need rules for when we're doing research about ourselves? That's one of the questions that comes up. Now, the thing that I've handed out, I helped run a panel a few months ago at the National Association of Writers in Education annual conference, and we had a panel on facts and feelings. There were 3 of us. And at the end, we talked about some of these issues, and at the end of it, we handed out Post-it notes, and we asked everyone to jot down their strategies for dealing with feelings. And we gave them these 3 headings: managing student feelings, managing our own feelings, and helping students communicate feelings in their writing. So you've got the handout with all of the detailed suggestions that people made. I think they're interesting and useful, and hopefully they apply in many, many different situations. I think that one of the reasons why I proposed the panel in the first place was that I was teaching a class. It was called Publishing for the Internet, and they're running for several years, and it's been focusing more and more, in terms of the writing, we're focusing more and more on the personal narrative as a form, the serial personal narrative, sometimes known as a blog. And so the question was, how much does that have to be personal, and how much do you need to use all of the writerly craft skills to step back and achieve effect on the reader. And a student said to me about her work one year, well, she wrote something very personal, and she said, this is what I feel, this is what really happened, so you can't mark me. Yeah. And she was reflecting a view that's fairly common, that emotions are outside the realm of critical engagement, both by myself and also by her. And this is the old romantic idea of head and body being separate, and you can't analyze feelings and so on. However, the important thing that we're always trying to get across in a writing class is that it's only bad writing that doesn't do that. Good writing is always looking critically at itself. And even if you're writing about yourself, you're carrying out research. And there's all kinds of forms of writerly research that writers do in order to defamiliarize themselves from themselves, to look at other people, to defamiliarize themselves from the text they've just written and to improve it and edit it. I would argue that all writers aim to be objective about their own work. And T.S. Eliot talked about the objective correlative, which is where you don't tell the reader what to think or feel. You create the effect on the page so that the reader gets that feeling by reading it. And it's called objective correlative precisely because the writer is aiming to be objective to create that effect. And so we always think of objective writing being the sort of totally fact-based, say, journalistic work, and whereas creative writing is all to do with the emotions. And in fact, what we're always trying to teach in all of our classes is how to be in touch with emotions and use emotions, but not to be driven by them. And this is the single most difficult and counterintuitive thing that we all try to communicate to our students in every single class that we do. And so I'll stop there. I'll point to some of the strategies that fellow teachers came up with and see whether there are any questions about that.
Thank you ever so much.